In today's video, we continue on with our NHL season preview series, working our way through teams in the Atlantic Division. Today, we focus on the Detroit Red Wings. They've been out of the playoffs for 9 years, although they've been close the past couple. Can they get over the hump and make the playoffs for this year? We'll discuss that and expectations coming up next. Welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, today we're looking at the season preview for the Detroit Red Wings as we continue to work our way through all of the teams in the Atlantic Division. And of course, we'll move on and look at another division next. I'll probably do one of the Western Conference teams or divisions next up. But for right now, we're partway through the Atlantic. We've done Montreal, we've done Boston, we've done Buffalo, and now here we are with Detroit. So first we're going to recap how things went last year, take a look at some key stats, both team and individual, look at their cap space. We'll do additions and subtractions to see how the team has changed over the course of the offseason, any rookies we should be looking for, contract extensions, things that might come up throughout the year. Then we'll look at a projected lineup and talk about the top questions facing the franchise going into the season, and I'll give you my thoughts on how I think they will do. So let's first recap the 24-25 season, where they finished with a record of 39, 35, and 8 for 86 points. You'll see a little graphic here on the screen, courtesy of hockeyreference.com. Sixth place in the Atlantic, 86 points, out of the playoffs by a decent amount. They were in the mix, you could say, right up until, towards the end of the year, and then they slowly just kind of crept back and fell out of it. I mean, there was a point in time when between Detroit or Montreal when you thought maybe it's hard to say how it's going to go, and even Columbus was in that mix too, to be honest. It was an interesting race, but clearly down the stretch, the Red Wings just kind of ran out of steam. Of course, they scored 235 goals last year, which wasn't great, the 22nd in the league. They gave up 259 goals, which also wasn't fantastic, 21st overall. So both those metrics, not really, terrific results. We saw a coaching change partway through the season. Derek Lalonde was fired at the 24-game mark. He had a record of 13, 17, and 4. So they were below 500, not going in a good direction. They bring in Todd McLellan, the very experienced coach who had worked in Detroit before as an assistant. And he had a much better record. He actually had a .583 winning percentage. There was a point, I think pretty sure if I remember correctly, they lost the first game with McLellan, and then they went on quite a run. Then they get that new coach bump that you often see, and then that kind of fizzled out over time. Then they became kind of human again, and obviously down the stretch, were so not so great. So he finished with a record of 26, 18, and 4. If they could play an entire season at that pace and have a .583 win percentage, they would have been a playoff team. They wouldn't have been much higher in the standings, but they would have been better than the wild card one team, which turned out to be Montreal. So that is going to be interesting to see how things progress into this year. But we'll have to look and see how the team has changed and see if we think that's realistic or not. Of course, their current playoff streak, which we always look at here, 9 years now consecutively out of the playoffs. The last time that they won a playoff series was actually quite a long time ago in 2013. So it's 9 years out, 12 years since they won a series, going on 13. The top scorers for the team this past season was Lucas Raymond with the most at 80 points. So obviously a nice season for Raymond. Alex DeBrincat had a pretty solid year, one of his best in the last, if you look at this, really, it's probably the best year he's had, I would say, probably since his bigger season he had in Chicago. The last year in Detroit and even his year in Ottawa, this past year was better than those last couple for sure. Well over 30 goals, 70 points. Dylan Larkin also had 70 points as well. Patrick Kane put up 59, still going pretty good at his age after a big surgery. The last couple of years playing in Detroit's been pretty good for him. He did miss a little bit of time, but overall, still playing at a pretty good level. Mo Seider, of course, led the D-Corps and was also 5th in team scoring with 46 points. Now, Steve Yzerman, we know, sometimes is patient, sometimes to a fault. He does have a decent amount of cap space to work with to go into the year. Right now, the Detroit Red Wings, if they don't make any more moves, will start the season with $11.9 million in cap space. So they have the ability to go out and add a good player or two if they really wanted to. So we'll see what they do. Of course, I imagine they'll start the year with what they have, but looking at this roster, to me, there's definitely some holes, and we'll discuss that here a little bit further. But let's now look at the additions and subtractions, so we can look at how this team has changed from last year. Now, no longer with the club, Vladimir Tarasenko, who had signed in Detroit on a 2-year free agent contract last year, didn't really work out for him. Had one of his lowest productive years in I think of his entire career. I think both sides kind of agreed it didn't really work, and they worked out a trade for him to go to Minnesota. Jeff Petrie was up for contract, so he was a free agent, went to Florida on a cheap deal. Alex Lyon, no longer with the club. He landed in Buffalo, and Peter Mrazek was also moved. Detroit had a lot of goaltenders on their roster there at one point, but Lyon and Mrazek are no longer with the club. New to the team this year, on the goaltending front, they brought in John Gibson from Anaheim. Gibson had been rumored forever and a day to be traded out of the Anaheim Ducks organization. Of course, Pat Verbeek runs that team, Yzerman's old buddy and former co-worker, assistant GM. So Gibson goes to Detroit. He'll partner, of course, with Talbot. We'll see how that works out. They also brought in some free agents, including Mason Appleton, who comes over from the Winnipeg, primarily a bottom six forward, usually a third line kind of player who can play in the PK, decent skater. They brought in a veteran forward in James Van Riemsdyk. Of course, JVR, he can still play, not the quickest by any means, but another veteran on this team. They brought in Jacob Bernard-Docker, who was originally an Ottawa Senator. He was traded to the Sabres in their big trade that they orchestrated around the deadline, which saw the primary pieces being Josh Norris and Dylan Cousins trading places. Bernard-Docker was then not qualified as a restricted free agent with the Sabres, making him a UFA, and then he signed in Detroit. I'm a little bit surprised, to be honest, that the Sabres just let him go. I thought he was pretty decent last year. But the other thing they brought in from Ottawa, again, is Travis Hamonic. I don't really understand this move. It's a 1-year contract, veteran deal, cheap contract, but at least they didn't give him a no-move clause like his last contract with Ottawa had. But Hamonic, I'm a little bit surprised. I really thought Hamonic was likely going to retire because I didn't think he would get any contracts, or maybe a PTO. But great person, good off the ice, good leadership. There's lots of intangibles that he can bring, but his on-ice play, unfortunately, it's just not where it needs to be anymore. I don't think. I was really shocked that they signed him. Now, if they brought him in on a PTO or something, I'd be like, okay, fine. You want to see what he's got left in the tank and go from there. But yeah, bringing Travis Hamonic in, questionable for sure. Rookies to watch this year. Which rookie should we be looking at that might have an impact on this team? The main one I would look to is Nate Danielson. I'm not sure that we're going to see him be a full-time NHLer. I'm not sure that he's going to make the team in a training camp, but I think he'll be one of the main younger players that will get opportunity when the need arises. I also do suggest Wings fans keeping a special close eye on Axel Sandin-Pellikka. This kid's going to be a really, really good player and will eventually be a top 4 defenseman for Detroit when the time is right. I would imagine he'll probably do another year of development before really having a real legit shot at the NHL. But yeah, he's a real special player you want to keep an eye on for sure. As far as players that we could see maybe be traded this year, you have to think Justin Hall's name is right at the top of that list. I know the Red Wings would probably love to move the contract for Andrew Kopp if they could. Unfortunately, that might prove difficult, and he probably will end up staying. But those would be the main names I would look for Red Wings trades this year. I mean, you could always have other guys if the right deal comes along, but those are the main names that I think if they had an opportunity to move, that they would take advantage of. As far as players that you could see end up inking contract extensions, there's probably not a whole lot of that we're going to see. One would be Cam Talbot. I don't imagine that's going to be the case. Considering they brought in Gibson, I would suspect that their longer-term play here is... Now, I wonder about Sebastian Cossa, too, in all this, how he's going to be affected. Another guy in the rookies to watch, I guess you could put him into. But obviously, with Cossa, do they keep him around? Is it maybe next year is Gibson and him, the tandem, and Talbot's on the way out after, one more year? I don't know, right? But Talbot is eligible. Ben Sherratt, Justin Holland, Eric Gustafson on the back end are all eligible. I can't see them doing extensions with any of them, to be completely honest. Not saying that they would all be gone. I can see Hall not coming back. To be honest, they should probably all be gone, to be completely honest, after this year or during the year, but it's easier said than done. But yeah, I don't see them coming back beyond the current season, so I wouldn't suspect we would see that, but they technically are eligible. Same goes for Patrick Kane, considering his age, and he's done the 1-year deals with the bonus structure and all that. I would suspect that that's probably going to be something that they work out next summer if he's going to continue playing with the Red Wings. He wouldn't be eligible for an extension until at least January anyways. And now their projected lineup right now looks like, I said, in goal, pretty clear cut. John Gibson, Cam Talbot will be your goaltending tandem. Cossa's the number 3. And behind the decor, we have a group that needs help, in my opinion. You're probably going to see a top pair of Mo Seider, most likely with Ben Sherratt. Your second pair is probably Simon Edvinsson, who's a young, promising defenseman, had a pretty good season last year. And Albert Johansson. Johansson's not bad either. Eric Gustafson and Jacob Bernard Docker, I think, would be your third pair, with Hamonic and Hall both being available for your 7/8 spots on the roster. I just hope for Detroit's sake that they don't end up in a situation where they have to have Hall and Hamonic both in the lineup at the same time. That would be a disaster. So I don't know that either of them will play a regular game. I mean, I would suspect that the other 6 will be your top 6, but we will see how Todd McClellan and Steve Yzerman feel about things. In the forward group, the top line will definitely be a combination of Dylan Larkin with Lucas Raymond. We could see DeBrincat on that line, but right now on the Daily Faceoff site for the line projections, they actually have James Van Riemsdyk penciled in with Larkin and Raymond. That might work. I don't really know that he's going to fit well with them, but good placeholder. They do have DeBrincat paired up with Patrick Kane and Marco Kasper, and Kasper was a nice revelation last year. He's going to be a real good player for them as well. DeBrincat and Kane do have good chemistry together, but we've also seen DeBrincat with Larkin as well, so that could be a different line. But again, I'm not sure that JVR really meshes well with Larkin or with Kane in that sense, but I got to put him somewhere, I guess. Your third line they have is JT Compher with Mason Appleton and Michael Rasmussen. Not sure I love that line either, but it's got a little bit of everything, to be honest. And then the fourth line of Andrew Kopp with Jonathan Berggren and Elmer Soderblom, with Austin Watson possibly being your 13th forward, or do they actually create more of a role here for Nate Danielson? That's what the Daily Faceoff projects right now. I'm not so sure I completely agree with that. I mean, obviously, Berggren could probably play higher in the lineup. I would probably give Berggren a shot to play in the top 6, to be honest. I think of all the guys that are not in the top 6, and if you take JVR out of it, I think Berggren would have the most talent, but we will see where that goes. Now, as far as the top questions facing this franchise and our expectations for the team this year, a big one for me is going to be, can they play some good, solid clip like they did under Todd McClellan, like I mentioned earlier? Like, can they play at that level for a whole season? If they can, they will be a much better team. However, like I said, I do believe that a large chunk of that was what we call the new coach bump. I don't know that the talent level is there to sustain that for an entire season. So that will be the challenge. If McClellan can keep them going like that, then maybe they do better. Will Gibson and Talbot be a solid goaltending tandem this year? Now, Gibson's had his injury issues in the past. What will his health be like? How will he play behind that questionable decor in my opinion. It's hard to say. I mean, Talbot has been good at times as well. I do think there's a lot of experience there, and they've both been good goalies in their moments. So can they be a solid enough goaltending to lead them to playoffs? Maybe, but I'm not really sold on that, to be completely honest. I mean, obviously they need to cut down on the goals against, and they need to score more as well. Improving both of those things in one season at the same time is not going to be an easy task. So how do you focus on it? Really, with this decor, you either try to give the offensive players more flexibility, more wiggle room to do their thing and maybe not pay so much of attention to defense, or do you go the other route and try to really clamp down on the D as a team, try to keep the puck out of your net, but you might score less because of it. It's a tough balance, to be honest, because I'm not sure that they're really built to be a balanced club here and to be able to work on improving both sides of the puck in that sense. Do we have decor concerns? And I absolutely do. Like I said, if Hall and Hamonic have to play at the same time, that's terrible. I like Mo Seider. I like Simon Edvinsson. I don't mind Johansson and Jacob Bernard-Docker. But I mean, that's not a great right side with the three of them, but it's better than the left-hand side. Like I'm Sherratt, Gustafsson, Hamonic, Hall, like easily 4 of these 8 defensemen, probably should be moved. So it's kind of tough to say exactly how this is going to go. I mean, we know Detroit has been close the past couple of years. They've been in the fight. Now, 2 years ago, they missed out on a tiebreaker, essentially. Came right down to the wire in the last day. This past year, they were a little bit further out. They had 86 points. I believe Montreal had, I think it was 91, I think it was. So they were out by about 5, I think it was 5 or 6 points. So, I mean, doesn't sound like a lot, but that's an extra, at least 3, maybe 4 wins to kind of secure your spot. That makes a difference. Like, instead of those 8 overtime losses, if they could have converted a few of those more to wins instead of overtime losses, you get a few extra points. Maybe there's some tight 1-goal games that you come out on the right side of instead. Things like that you need to improve upon. So I don't know. I don't love the decor. You have 2 aging goaltenders who one has had a lot of health issues. And, if you're looking at improving the offense, they didn't really add anything to do that. I mean, I know Dylan Larkin kind of complained that he wished he would have seen the team add more. And Yzerman basically shut that down and said, well, you know what? I don't know that they basically deserve to have that. What we have internally needs to do a better job and needs to provide more. Yeah, they definitely didn't see eye to eye on that part. But I don't know, right? Like, they didn't add anything really big to help the offense, and they didn't add really anything to help the defense. Like, Petrie's gone. He was not great defensively anymore. Tarasenko's gone. He wasn't great offensively anymore. But that's about it. You know what I mean? Like, you don't really, and if you look at what you added, besides take Gibson out of the equation for a moment, you've got a couple of defensemen that nobody else wanted. No offense to them. And then you've got a veteran winger in JVR who's bounced around, hasn't mostly played like third line, and then you get Appleton who's a bottom 6. Like, they really didn't add much. Is the forward group maybe better defensively? Maybe a little bit, but that's it. Like, there's really not, like, for a team that's been under the playoffs for 9 years, I would have thought that we would have seen something more substantial, but no. The patience in Yzerman is extreme. We know that. There doesn't appear to be any pressure on him losing his job, but at some point, something's got to give here, right? You would think. So we will see what happens. I personally think Detroit will have a tough time making the playoffs. I do think they'll probably be able to hang around, be in the conversation until, the final, 15 to 20 games at least, maybe more. But I don't see how they had, if you look at being 6th in the Atlantic last year, right? The 5 teams that were ahead of them last year, I don't see them improving enough to overtake any of them. And then on top of that, you wonder about like Buffalo, to me, Buffalo almost looks better on paper than Detroit does, in my honest opinion. I would probably pick the Sabres to be right there, or finish ahead of them. And then you wonder about Boston. Can they bounce back? I'm not convinced they can, but the Bruins are a team that's hard to bet against at the same time. But looking at their roster, I don't know. I think that the Bruins are going to see some more pain before they get better. So really, is Detroit looking at a 6-7 finish again? Or can they climb into that top 5? Because the top 5 in this division, I do think will once again have a shot at all being playoff teams. But with this kind of changes through the summer, to be honest, it's hard to have confidence that they have made enough changes to overcome any of those teams. So let me know what you think in the comments, and we'll discuss further. If you have any different of opinion, or you think that playing at the clip that McLellan had them at is sustainable, which I'm not convinced that yet it is, but time will tell, I guess. Let me know what you think, and we'll talk further in the comments. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with all the news, rumors, and analysis of all 32 NHL teams. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you next time.